This bill comes in, you code it. Then it comes in again, and you code it. And again, and again, and so on, and so on, and so on. Or you teach WiseVision how you want the bill coded once and let it remember. Today, I'm going to show you a few ways you can train the AI inside of MakersHub around the way your business actually handles bills. And I don't mean spending 3 days building some giant AP automation workflow. You can show WiseVision where information belongs on an invoice. You can create bill coding rules around vendors, descriptions, addresses, classes, jobs, and account codes. And now you can simply tell WiseVision what you want in plain English. Let's start with something simple. Here's a bill from Glass and Mirror Craft. There's a surcharge on this invoice. WiseVision scanned it, but it didn't know that we wanted that surcharge pulled out as its own line item. Now, I could fix this manually, but then we're right back to that little Sysco commercial every time another bill arrives. Instead, I'm going to teach WiseVision. I'll add an item with a magnifying glass, search for surcharge, and add the item. Now, WiseVision knows where that information is on the invoice and that we want it extracted every time. Let's take it one step further, though. I don't just want WiseVision to find the surcharge. I want it coded correctly to the right account code. So I'll create an integration mapping rule that says, anytime the description equals surcharge, automatically code that surcharge to the surcharge and convenience fee in my chart of account codes. Now when that description appears, WiseVision knows which QuickBooks account code to use. And that's an important distinction. We're not simply extracting what's pinned to the bill. That's data capture. We're teaching WiseVision what that information means in our accounting process. Find it, extract it, code it where it belongs in the chart of account codes. And now that GL accounting logic can be reused the next time this vendor sends us a bill. Now let's make this more interesting. This Rushco bill needs to be assigned to a class based on the ship to address. Normally that means somebody has to know, oh, this address is Pewaukee, so this goes to that class. That's exactly the kind of accounting knowledge that tends to live in someone's head. Instead, I'm going to give that knowledge to WiseVision. I'll tell it in plain English. If the shipping address contains Wisconsin 53072, code all the line items to Pewaukee accounting class. That's it. WiseVision reads the bill, finds the shipping address, and applies the correct class to every line item. So the next time the Rushco bill comes in with that address, the class tracking is already handled. Nobody needs a sticky note saying WI 53072 equals Pewaukee. We've put that knowledge into the accounts payable process itself. All right, simple bill coding rules are nice, but real bills aren't always nice. Here's Summit Industry Supply. I've got costs for building A, building B, building C. I've got different jobs, different account codes, and some charges apply to multiple buildings. So now we're getting into the kind of bill where manual invoice coding becomes somebody's afternoon. But let's see what WiseVision can do with it. First, I'm going to tell WiseVision to use line item description to determine the job. Real job costing, straight off the invoice. If the description contains building A, assign it to building A, North Campus. If it contains building B, assign it to building B, Central Campus. And if it contains building C, assign it to building C, South Campus. I'm also going to tell WiseVision to look up each description and select the appropriate account from our chart of account codes. And then we let it work. And look at what's happening. Building A is going to job code building A, building B goes to building B, C goes to building C, and WiseVision is also using the description to determine appropriate GL account codes. So we're taking one bill with a bunch of different costs and coding every single line item where it belongs. Now, I'll save that as an integration mapping because, again, I don't want to teach it the same thing next month. But there's still one problem on this bill. What happens when a line item applies to all three buildings? That's cost allocation, and is usually where the spreadsheet comes out. Let's say our rule is 50% to building A, 30% to building B, and 20% to building C. I can tell WiseVision to do that too. If the line item doesn't apply to a specific building, split the line items as follows: 50% to building A, 30% to building B, and 20% to building C. And there it goes. The lines tied to a specific building stay with that building. The shared cost gets split out across jobs according to our percentages. And if those percentages change, just change the prompt. I can also save prompts like this and pull them up again when I need them. So I'm not manually calculating expense allocations and then manually entering them line by line. I tell WiseVision the accounting logic. WiseVision handles the tedious part. Fair trade. Now, let's come back to our little friend from the beginning, the Sysco bill. Look at this thing. Cheese, provolone, bacon, beef, salami, chicken, bakery items. It's a nice little grocery list that somebody in accounts payable gets to turn into account codes. Again and again and again, unless we teach WiseVision. So I'm going to tell it, reference the restaurant supply accounts in my chart of accounts and auto-assign the account code on each line item based on its description. Now look at what it does. Everything is assigned to the chart of account codes based on description. Proteins are categorized accordingly. Bakery items go where they belong. WiseVision is looking at the individual line items and then determining the appropriate account code based on the chart of accounts we already use. I don't have to redesign my chart of accounts around the software. WiseVision works the way that we're already accounting for these costs. And once I'm happy with these results, I save it as an integration mapping. And that's the part I really want you to take away from this. Training WiseVision isn't about teaching AI some abstract trick. It's about taking the accounting knowledge your team already uses every day and putting it into the system. This vendor surcharge goes here. This ship to address means this class. Building A goes to this job. Shared expenses get split this way. You can now show WiseVision what you mean. You can save those instructions as integration mapping rules. And the next time the bill comes in, you're not starting for zero. That's the difference between AP software that reads an invoice and AP automation that actually codes it. Because this is going to keep happening, and so on, and so on, and so on. The question is whether your team needs to keep doing the same work over and over again, or teach WiseVision how your business handles the bill.